Hello, creatives, community, and kind folks. Welcome to RPG with DBJ. I am your host, DBJ, and today we are going to talk about um, latest news in tabletop role playing games, the most important of which, and I'm sure you guys have already heard this, that two top level designers from Dungeons and Dragons, Wizards of the Coast, have been hired by Darrington Press, who are the producers of Daggerheart. So, another stab to the heart of Dungeons and Dragons, at least as far as the tabletop community and goodwill goes. Cool, good for them. Lots of great designers and whatnot have reached up to that level. And then we're going to talk about uh, a bunch of other things that happen in news. Ars Magica being released in Creative Commons, and some other things. Is of course some subjects you guys have to deal with, would like to talk about and deal with. And, we just like to hang out, kind of like hanging around the table before a game and just shoot the shit. So, guys, please sit back, relax, um, grab your drink and snacks, and bring your brilliance, of course, because we always love it over here. Um, let's talk about current news, Daggerheart, Ars Magica, everything else in the tabletop role playing game community. Hello, creatives, community, and kind folks. Welcome to the channel. And of course, as always, we welcome your comments and concerns and whatnot. The one that's been going around, and it depends on how you feel about doom and gloom or hooray and hurrah, is the big one that Jeremy Crawford and Chris Perkins have been hired by Darrington Press. And Darrington Press, of course, produces Daggerheart, which has taken the world by storm. I'm a fan of Daggerheart. Maybe a little too much Dungeons and Dragons on the player side for me, and that's not a it's not a criticism in a bad way. Just personal thing. But I love all of the game master stuff on the game master side, and it's a bit of a trend of this, like, um, when, then, yes, no, if, um, mixed success with failure, success with a complication, failure with some kind of forward motion. And of course, with the dice roll, you have a hope and fear, and I really like that. And it seems that the more we have these games that spread to a larger group of people, that may become the norm, or at least players that aren't used to systems that are more intricate than just pass fail may start to embrace those kind of things. So I really appreciate that. Also, there's something in the background, and this is of course just an editorial thing. There's been a thing in the background of the tabletop role playing community where um, we evolve in different stages, and that evolution of us going through different stages of gaming, whether it's learning one game and then learning that there are other games out there with different rules, or learning that our game that we like to play has many people contributing to it to make uh, the rules more intricate or more advanced or simplified, um, new amazing settings that we may go from sword and sorcery to science fiction or modern or more historical backgrounds and things like that. And we start to learn. And then we there's like this pyramidal step that we take in the community where maybe we want to produce something for our friends and family, and then we dip our toe into actually producing material for other people we don't know, whether it's whatever online social group we have, and maybe even becoming a self-publisher or small press publisher, or working together with other people. And it starts to rise up, and there becomes this goal, whether we intend for that goal to be a thing or not, where not only do we want to become indie publishers, but there was a period of time where the pinnacle was to work for and or get hired on permanently with the Dungeons and Dragons intellectual property, whoever it might have controlled it, whether it was TSR in the past or Wizards of the Coast presently. But that goal to reach that high level has been, for the most part, the people that got to the top of the mountain got punched in the face quite a bit. Constant layoffs, constant corporate machinations in the background, like desires and goals of the intellectual property that don't align with the original tabletop role-playing game, whether it's video games or subscription models or downloadable materials that can't be stolen or copywritten or something. I mean, we go into a lot of the detail in that. There are whole channels that are specialists in that. But one of the things that was a real, almost, I want to say, like an unwritten life goal was like, wouldn't it be cool to write and design and edit and lay out and just be one of the creators that pushes Dungeons and Dragons into the next, for the next generation? And not the corporate entity has not left a lot of bodies. They haven't left a lot of bodies alive and well in the aftermath of their corporate machinations. And so these individuals had to go somewhere. I believe it was, let's see if I can find, I have a list here, but one of the, Jeremy Crawford and Chris Perkins, former lead designers for D&D, have joined Darrington Press. And Chaosium has a new CEO, and Mike Merles has departed the company, formerly over at Chaosium. I was trying to remember what are these names. And they really haven't, Dungeons and Dragons hasn't really been able to find or monetize or promote a face that can represent the company. And one of the things in the tabletop community, especially with Darrington Press and Critical Role and Daggerheart, MCDM's Draw Steel, and many of these other games, is that it's not just the game, it's the personalities that are involved in the game. Like there's a person that that's speaking about the game and their love for the game and the way it's designed. And we don't have that for Dungeons and Dragons anymore. We don't have that person that gets up there on the screen once a week or whatever and talks about like sage advice or errata that's come out, or is excited to show off a new setting or group of monsters or rule set or whatever. And there's corporations just have a very hard time acquiring a personality that represents their product, their brand, that doesn't come across as just something that's like a corporate ledger memo, read off the prompt kind of thing. Now, as we get into AI video and things like that, maybe they could construct one. And, although I'm sure they'll get blasted for using like, an artificial AI avatar to represent Dungeons and Dragons or whatever. But I suppose they could do it with like some hardened adventurers and some monsters or something that speaks for the game and have it like all artificial kind of. I don't know. That would just be me, like to have a face, at a minimum, somebody really good with social media and whatnot. But oh well, really, it really just means that there's been a transition away from that form of communication, and now we've got other games with some of those great greater designers. Now, I've heard tell that Jeremy Crawford and Chris Perkins, it's not just Daggerheart that they were hired to help facilitate. It could be that they have other products coming out, whether it's card games or board games. It could be expansions off of Daggerheart, and they want personalities attached to it. It could be that the Critical Role group, as they move away from Dungeons and Dragons, just like they moved away from Pathfinder, maybe they want to have multiple avenues of uh, promoting the game through live plays and things like that. Maybe I really think they should have their own in-house, like, smaller videos. Not everybody can go for a 3 to 5 hour video about the game, and it's too much. I'm not a critter at all. It's too much for me. Even I get the ability to listen to podcasts for hours and hours of my day, and even I'm just like, I can't do it. Just because of the time crunch and whatnot. I can't do it. But good for them. So I'm glad they got that higher. And I'm thinking that probably like our top 5 to top 10 indie games might be the best place for our greatest designers to fall from now on. Whether it's for a simple project and they just happen to be part of the process, or whether they're hired on for a year or something of that nature. I hope we can. I hope the dreams aren't dashed of those that reached up to Dungeons and Dragons and wanted to put their thumbprint on it and just say, "Hey, I was there." Spook says they can bring back the animated kids as mascots. That or a CG dragon. Yeah, I was thinking like the monsters, like a dragon and an ogre maybe, or minotaur or something like that as well. Because either way, I think avoiding AI I agree. Might be best, since they are known for firing artists and talent after they get what they want. Yeah, yeah. Here's the problem though. As I said it out my mouth, I was like, they're gonna get kicked in the balls if they start using AI, because they already have it before. But I guess if they're upfront with it, just to have like okay, yeah, it wasn't working for a little while. I thought there was maybe a problem, but the comments showed up, so it's kind of cool. But yeah, I mean, their thing about having AI slipped into some of their books, but it was due to probably communication with some of the artists who were then using AI with their own art and stuff. Yeah, I mean, but do we really care if they? I mean, at this point with Dungeons and Dragons, like, are we going to be really surprised if they use something that's like, you know, uh, controversial to the community, but they don't care? I mean, if they're going to bother doing something like that, and mind you, this is me spouting out the side of my neck, right? Like, if they use an AI dragon and an AI ogre and a Medusa or something like that to come, heck, even specific IP that they own, like Mind Flayers, the Elithids, or um, uh, the Beholders and other monsters, and have him like speak. They have these little like shorts or something, or talk about the game or whatever. I don't know. I think that'd be kind of cool. I think if you're going to use artificial intelligence for something, like, just to have like a fun comedic dragon or beholder or mind flayer or something like that, like the old I don't think you guys remember the Crypt Keeper, but they used to have like television shows that were like hosted by a figure like Elvira, or the skeleton. I can't remember the skeleton that used to do the horror stories. But anyway, that was a puppet. But anyway, yeah, I think that'd be kind of cool for them. That way, again, they don't have to worry about firing somebody and having that hurt them, even though, with corporate decisions, nobody, feelings don't matter. But anyway, okay. That's Jeremy Crawford. Great. I'm glad they landed there. And I've heard tell that some say that they are probably, because uh, they came from top level positions at Dungeons and Dragons, that they could do the same thing for the Darrington Press brand. The Crypt Keeper, yeah. The Crypt Keeper. I couldn't remember his name. Do this stuff live. I get mental constipation when I do these things live. Yes, it is the Crypt Keeper. Oh man. Anyway, and the Crypt Keeper was very just like Elvira, very sarcastic and whatnot. I mean, they could do the same thing for like an ogre is like, stops and looks at the screen and is like me not know who you are, but me would like to tell you about yeah. Yeah, it was the Crypt Keeper. Yeah, yeah. I just couldn't remember for some reason. Anyway, good for them, and I hope that they can use their expertise for like marketing. Maybe one or both of them will become the face of the game, where they can speak on Candela Obscura and maybe some other projects coming out, plus Daggerheart, and maybe one or both of them, or they could have these sit downs, with the proverbial leather chair and the fuzzy background, uh, and just talk about the game and where it's going and what they intend on doing. And there's a yeah, oh yeah, there was some some spicy. There were some things said like today. I don't know if you could get away with it, and especially like Elvira with the her powdered ample bosom was another character. It's like I don't know today. I mean, I don't know. I wouldn't have a problem with it, but I'm sure plenty of people would. But yeah, the Crypt Keeper was always a little dirty, shall we say. All right. Ars Magica. Okay, so for those who don't know, there's a game. We do have the Wikipedia article here. I pulled this up just because I couldn't remember specific details, but there's an old tabletop role playing game known as Ars Magica. And designers Jonathan Tweet and Mark Reinhagen, who both have gone on to be excellent designers and go other places. And Ars Magica, for me, was one of my favorite. Let me see if I can get an image up here. Was one of my favorite tabletop role playing games. Like it was my one of my favorite forays into like the non Dungeons and Dragons system, and I really had fun with this game, and it has some interesting elements to it that, like I said, I'm just talking about simple news and things here. One of the things that really impressed me about Ars Magica was that it was ahead of its time, and it had a very interesting background to this game, and yeah, it was. Shy Squad says, "Yeah, dude, half of those episodes were like this dude goes to bang some chick and ends up in the dungeon getting his parts ripped off." Yep, a lot of it was just like she's cute, and of course, we're watching it as kids. We're like, "Don't do it, don't do it," and he gets like it's some anecdote about how his kidneys got sold, right? Or like his head gets removed and placed on top of a gorilla's body or something like that. Mm-mm-mm. Wild, crazy stuff with the Crypt Keeper. Yeah, yeah, like little one-liner jokes. Oh man, the era of like the Rodney Dangerfield comedian where they would have like a one or two line joke, and it would just be like back to back like one or two line jokes. You guys are silly. Okay, Ars Magic of the game. Now, there's been a you know what? That is a common thing back in ye olden days when it came to horror movies and slasher movies. One of the common tropes of the time was that there was a bunch of bad kids being despicable, right? Having premarital sex, smoking, drugs, drinking, um, sometimes littering, destroying things, spray painting and things like that, being out late when they shouldn't be, lying to their parents, and then whatever horror situation they were in, they would suffer that. And then the last two remaining would be like the final girl and the virgin. And it was kind of like it was kind of like a warning to kids, like, you should behave yourselves instead of going out there in the dark and loneliness and then getting killed by a slasher or some monster or evil spirit or something like that. Of course, over time, we literally just have horror movies where innocent people just get slashed up and we don't really care. But it, there was a moral imperative to what was going on, like the oil slick that kills the kids on the beach, yep, who were littering and things like that. Yeah, it was a lot of that was like, evil spirits going after the evil kids, and then the one or two good kids realized that the evil spirit had like some kind of like unfinished life, and then they would finish the life of the evil spirit, and they'd be like, hey, thank you. I hope you're doing well as well, their gift. Thank you very much for stopping by, Gift of Gabby. So Ars Magica. Sorry, you guys, hard segueing. Ars Magica is a game that really captured my heart, and I believe they've had a current Kickstarter. Let's see if I can find the thing here. Ars. That they have a open license. They're trying to get the game, Atlas Games, getting Ars Magica into the open license. And here we go. I'm going to share this out. What is Ars Magica? So anyway, here at the very top, this is their website. As a matter of fact, you know what? Let me be nice. Copy this and put it up in the chat. And then I'll explain, because it's an older game. It's very old. 87. Some people weren't even born yet. They're playing role-playing games. They haven't played this game before. But Ars Magica open license, contribute to the magical world of Mythic Europe. Try to get to spread out this type of game. And here on the resources part, it talks about the open license logo and the CC BY SA 4.0 deed and legal code. Essentially, it's like the legalese in being able to write for this game and use it for yourself. There's no system here. It says there is no system reference document, or SRD. The full text of the released books may be extracted from PDFs available. In some cases, we don't have digital text, so aren't able to provide it. As in the case of text from the oldest books that may be licensed, we'll note this situation in our releases here if it applies. They didn't create an SRD, but you can look in the books, and it talks about which were released, why they did it, whatnot. And if I could summarize some of the things that have been done here for Ars Magica and why it has captured some people's attention for such a long time, because this game has been out, and some interesting things about this game. Basically, the magic system and the player positioning of the game are the two things that are really cool. So Ars Magica is a role-playing game set in Mythic Europe, a historically grounded version of Europe and the called Levant around AD 1200. And with the added conceit that conceptions of the world prevail in folklore and institutions of the high Middle Ages are factual reality. A situation known informally as the medieval paradigm. The player's involvement revolves around an organization of magi and their allies and foes, both mundane and supernatural. The game was originally published by Jonathan Tweet and Mark Reinhagen, with its first edition published in 1987. In short, there's a three-pronged conflict going on in this a bit of a harder edged medieval Europe. And it is magic, which is on the player side, faith, which is on the church's side, and dare I say, I'm going to call it paganism, which is which includes things like demons and witches and hedge magic and things like that. And then, of course, there's the common nobles and whatnot. And the players come in contact with that because this is a world in which Christianity is a thing in the world. It's not hinted at, it's really in the game. Now, mind you, it's a fantasy game, so things like people being possessed, um, influenced by angels, oracles, psychics, the blessed, people that have been blessed, regions that have been consecrated or desecrated, and things like that are real in this game. So it's not just Christianity and done. It's more like the mysticism that is involved in it, and kind of cool. Now, one of the things that one of the two things that I said I wanted to really talk about is the player position, and I wonder why we haven't stolen this for other games. So, Ars Magica was one of the first examples of a troop style system. Think of it like actors in a play, and like a Shakespearean play, and you as a player, all your players get together and you represent like the magi, which is like the highest level, the nobility within the magical realm. And then you have like side characters that don't have magic, or at least they aren't wizards, but they are unique in who they are. They could be like a shape changer, or a seer, or a renowned warrior, a person who survived, uh, having their spirit taken down into the hells, and you've returned, kind of changed or something. Or you were a small child that was kidnapped by Fae, and you're a changeling now, or something like that. And that was your second tier. And then you had even below that, you had the second tier were called Custos, and the third tier were Grogs. And Grogs were like average characters. You were like valet, cook, guard, carpenter, scout, um, you know, paper thin personalities, that kind of thing. And as players, you would create this trope, this troop of characters that would travel and had certain missions and things like that. And you could pick and choose between the grouping. So it was, yes, you had your own player character, but you had these other characters that were like, you could pass them around. They had their own agendas. Sometimes it was necessary for some of the lower level characters to go into like local villages and towns, because no one knew of their relationship with the Magi, who might be hated because they practice magic, which might be against the church or something like that. And we had a lot of fun doing that. But listen, these lower tier characters, you basically like played them like you stole them, right? Nobody really cared no one cared who they belonged to. And sometimes a player would do something with one of those like side characters or lower tier characters, and it would just be funny or interesting or dramatic, and we would add that to that character, and that became their thing or something. But anyway, really liked it, and their balance was not an issue. So Magi are far more powerful than the Custos. Custos were more powerful than the Grog. That's it. That just was a thing, you know. Very easy to accommodate people that had to dip in and out of the game. Very easy to tell stories where maybe the characters, the Magi, were on. Easy to explain where one Magi was like, I'm going on a vision quest somewhere, and that player had to leave. But okay, they'll be back when they're back. I'm gonna, stay in the tower and work on some kind of formulaic thing to design a magic rod or something. And you go, okay, well, your character's going to be there for 7 months, and the rest of us are going to keep on adventuring. And kind of cool. So that's the first thing about Ars Magica that I really liked. It very easy to port over because, for example, let's take Dungeons and Dragons. Let's take our classic Dungeons and Dragons. You could very easily say, hey guys, everybody make 5 levels of character or characters. Mm. You could very easily do this with other games too, as well. Shadow Dark and Knave and ICRPG and some of these other games, but very easy to port over. And you go, okay, pick a level of expertise and say you get to make one or more characters using no more than these number of points or levels or whatever. Like, hey, can I make 5 first level characters? Sure. Could I make a third level character and their second level assistant? Yeah, go ahead. Or a second level character and 3 first level characters or something, and be like, yeah. And then you start establishing relationships with them, brothers and sisters, and men at arms, and both of us survived the thing, or maybe one of them is a noble and the other one's their protector, or maybe one of them is a noble but nobody knows it, hiding amongst the common folk, and maybe their best friend is like, I know you're a noble, but I'm not going to let anybody else know it, or whatever the case might be. So yeah, kind of cool, easy to port over. I'm surprised it's not used. Okay, sorry. Second part for Ars Magica, the magic system. The magic system is a verb-noun magic system. Uses Latin for part of it, and I really liked it. And it's an open-ended magic system from the 80s, from the mid to late 80s, 87 when the game was produced. So late 80s, early 90s, open-ended magic system with guardrails. So you can't just do whatever you want. But so the explanation is there's like 5 techniques and then there's 10 forms, and you mix and match them for character creation. So let's see, let me share this out here. So this is the magic system for Ars Magica, and right down here we have the techniques, and there's Creo, Intelligo, Muto, Perdo, and Rego. And they each mean something, like I something. So, for example, under Creo, you have I create, Intelligo, I perceive. For Muto is I transform, Muto, mutation, mutate. Perdo is I destroy, and Rego is I control. And then you match that with one or more of 10 forms. We have animal, aurum, which affects lightning, wind, and gas, clouds. Aquam for liquids, with the exception of blood, but water, blood, other liquids. Corpus, which is the incorrect declension of corporum, but corpus applies to the human body. Herbum, primarily plants. Ignum involves light and heat, fire. Represented in the fire spells of House Flambeau. What a name, Flambeau. Imaginum, which deals with sounds and images and illusions. Mentum, dealing with emotions, memories, thoughts, and spirits. Terrum involves earth and minerals. And then I always thought it was pronounced Weem, V-I-M, which represents power and involves magic itself as well as demons. And Weem is the ability to manipulate the power behind all of the other magic. And you could use it to extend the duration of things, make things permanent, or literally unweave magic from other people. And you could apply something. So, for example, a character could have I create, which is Creo, and then maybe 2 of the things below, like I create animals, or I create the body, or I create air, aurum, or aquam, or imaginum. And then there were spell effects that you could spontaneously create if and only if you had the proper verb and noun put together. So with the 5, I create, I perceive, I transform, I destroy, I control, you know, if you wanted to do something unique, like, hey, I want to create a wall of fire. If you didn't have Creo, you couldn't create that wall of fire. Now, if you oh shit, if you were creative enough, you could say, well, I control, and maybe use a bonfire and then control the flame out of the bonfire to make a ring or a wall or something like that. So you could be very creative if you could use your verb and noun together, and it's really cool magic system. And let it be known that like um, the characters that had more than one of these forms and or techniques and combined them together made them pretty damn powerful. And this wasn't a game about like shooting fireballs. It was very much like uh, controlling the external world and figuring out how to do that for yourself. So anyway, very very good game. I'm glad it's in the Creative Commons. Not a lot of attention to it because, again, it's an older game, and not a lot of people are familiar even with what the game is about, let alone like writing for it and whatnot. But I think it's cool. Um, Maybe a little bit more difficult to write for it since there isn't a specific SRD to pull from. Um, but yeah, I mean the fact that they took a ton of their text only releases that you can go to their website and download and whatnot. I think it's a cool thing. Cool thing. They've got a lot of stuff here. So anyway, wanted to show that off, and we'll talk about some other things too. Comment. Looks like. Let's see if we can redo this, so we can bring it back. Not sure if you guys are doing anything in the chat, but it seems like it's not operating. Actually, you know what? Let me see if. Let me go to my own web page and see if I can find the chat if it's moving. Ah, damn it. Okay. See, it's coming up, but it's not. What the hell is going on? It came up. Okay, good, 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 good. Okay, maybe it's just got a high delay. Sorry about that. All right, so anyway, there's some other news. There's some other latest news that came up that we can hit on, and a lot of it I wasn't very familiar with at all. Of course, there's always things happening when it comes to like Kickstarters and things like that. But I didn't know that there's in the works. It makes sense though that there is in the works. Let's see if I can find it here. An Invincible tabletop role playing game. Yeah, let's see if we can call this up here. Superhero games have I have a soft spot in my heart for superhero games. I played a ton of DC Heroes and original Phase Rip Marvel superheroes. Phase Rip, FASERIP, which were the 7 stats: fighting, agility, strength, endurance, reason, intuition, and psyche. I can't believe I remember that. Anyway, here is the Kickstarter page. Notify me on launch. Here we go. Let's copy this and throw this in here. Here's the Kickstarter page for Invincible. Now, not everybody is into like animated television shows. I have the graphic novels of Invincible. Invincible itself, the superhero graphic novel, came about at a time when Invincible and a number of other characters, a comic book group, I think it was Dark Horse Comics at the time, um, wanted to bring back the so-called 4-color comic book. If you aren't familiar with comic books, there's this genre of comic books often kind of labeled as four color, and four color basically is came about from an ink process. But a lot of those comics were your traditional like tights, superheroes in tights with laser eyes and teleportation and shape shifting and force fields and things like that. And the creators of Invincible were like, oh, let's do that and have it look very four color bright. And then they decided to layer on top of that some um, poke you in the eye realism that would happen in comic books and in real life that normally are not spotlighted in comic books at all. Like for example, um, there's a whole long series when Invincible starts learning his powers and like he's super invulnerable, and even in the animated series like he goes to try to grab like catch someone, an innocent person that got flung through the air, and he ends up their body ends up breaking against his body. The innocent person gets their broken limbs because he's so invulnerable that he just it was like they were hitting a brick wall. And there's a lot of little things like that, like a lot of broken bones and blood and gore. Um, very strong, powerful people punching normal humans and ripping their spines out and punching through their chests and things like that. Lots of gore and very fun. You know what? I'm going to click this. Notify me on launch. Oh, I got to log in and all that kind of stuff. Well, we'll do that at a different time. Um, so Invincible, the superhero role playing game. I don't know. It's going to be produced by Free League, which is kind of cool. And I don't know what system they're going to use. Um, I don't know how like I don't know what the seriousness of it will be. Um, so I don't know. Not a lot of information here. 144 issues. That's something else that really made Invincible uh, absolutely prime. Is that wait a minute? Invincible superhero role playing is coming to Kickstarter later this year. The initial offering will include a comprehensive core rulebook and starter set with illustrations by Corey Walker and Ryan Otley and graphic design by Johan Noor from Morkborg. Woof. I'm sure they're not going to make it Morkborgian, but wow. Designed by Adam Bradford, D&D Beyond founder and producer on titles for Dungeons and Dragons, Cortex Prime, and Marvel. Freely co-founder and lead designer of titles such as the Alien RPG, the Blade Runner RPG, Mutant Year Zero, and Dragonbane. Huh. But okay. Kind of cool. Launching soon. But yeah, even these side characters are very fun. One of the very few comic books written and drawn by the same crew from beginning to end with a unified story and theme. A lot of times these things get handed over, and that's very rare. Yeah, I like the game more than the comics too. The Marvel comics, yeah, phase rip. Spook says we usually stuck to Heroes Unlimited because we like to hurt ourselves with the Palladium system. we played ourselves some Heroes Unlimited. It had its balance issues. Palladium games had its balance issues, but whatever. There was some fun to be had. We always combined it with some of the other books like um, Ninjas and Super Spies and things like that. What was another one? Uh, oh, Mythic China and Ancient Japan or something. Oh, from Rifts. Anyway, yeah, we had some fun with it. We had a lot of fun with the Palladium game system. Palladium, basically Dungeons and Dragons without like the guardrails. Doesn't We don't talk about Palladium a lot. We don't talk about that very much at all. Oh well, let's see. But anyway, some simple news I thought I would introduce. I'm trying to think of anything else here. Oh, we do have some latest news information. A bunch of things being put out on Kickstarter. Not all right. I'll read through some of these. Bunch of people putting out like 5e things. Um, Pathfinder remastering and re-releasing some things. Kind of cool. Werewolf the Apocalypse, a new source book's been announced. I'm not sure if that means it's Werewolf the Apocalypse and a source book for Werewolf the Apocalypse, or because of the reunification of the brand, whether it means Werewolf the Apocalypse, a new book, getting all the information together. Werewolf the Apocalypse, I'm surprised Werewolf isn't as hasn't hit the let me see if I can find something here. Werewolf the Apocalypse. Let's see if we can find I'll just put up some images here. It's going through a number of iterations. It's going through as many iterations basically as Vampire the Apocalypse. I mean, Vampire. Wow. Vampire the Masquerade and all of its variations. There was a 20th anniversary version of this game. I'm sure there's a 5th edition. We don't need to talk about Palladium much. I hear you. I do hear you. Let's get one of these. This, I believe, is one of the first books that I had. I think I still have the hardcover book with the slash marks through it that were literally dug into the book. And for those who are unfamiliar, werewolf is you get to play, well, a werewolf, except you're the hero of the world. And you play one of a number of different types of breeds, basically tribes of werewolves, who are brought together in a pack. And what are the big 3 enemies? The worm, the wild, and the weaver. The weaver represented industry. It represented modern technology and the over infiltration of modern technology in the world. And then it was the weaver, the worm, and the wild. The wild represented the untamed wilderness, and as a werewolf, your job is to tame the wilderness, to be an apex predator in the untamed wild parts of the uncharted parts of the world. And then there's the worm. The worm is like the proverbial evil snake. It is the hydra, the snake, the serpentis, everything that is evil in the world writ large. And so you do battle against those 3 main forces in the world, understanding that humanity doesn't understand that you're doing this for the good. So humanity thinks that you're a flesh-rending, shape-shifting thing that needs to be killed, if they even understand what you are in the first place. Because most people suffer from something known as the delirium, and they don't understand what you really are. And you might be known as a slasher or serial killer or a drifter, something of that nature. Maybe someone with some very serious lethal danger to yourself and others, mental affliction, things like that. And so you kind of have to be underground, kind of, and in pursuit of doing the good thing, doing some pretty horrible, basically being a badass that like wants to rip people's throats out and stuff like that. And like I said, there's different tribes. So not every werewolf is the same. Not every person is a human being, to be honest with you. You can play a werewolf that was originally a canine that has, I say, embraced their blood and now is a walking, talking werewolf It doesn't even have to be talking, but your normal role isn't human. You might just be like a dog or a wolf or something of that nature. And they had the different tribes. Some lived in the sewers, and some lived in the urban regions, and others lived in were more like Viking like, whereas others were more indigenous people, and others were Asian and things like that. And yeah, but Werewolf the Apocalypse, pretty cool game. Um, Gotta admit, and also a bit of a yeah, Spook said they just did Werewolf 5e not long ago. It might be like a V20. I'm not sure, and I understand, if I understand correctly, and please don't take this with a grain of salt, that because of the separate corporate ownership of the IP, that there was a 20th anniversary, basically a re-release of Werewolf the Apocalypse. I believe with some combinations of some source book material, and then as time has gone on, then there was a fifth edition of it, which had updated rules, updated dice mechanics, and things of that nature. Like for example, for Vampire, um, long after Requiem, I do have the 20th anniversary, but there's a fifth edition of Vampire the Masquerade that uses like hunger dice, where you replace standard D10s with hunger dice, so you don't have less dice, but if the hunger dice come up, you suffer basically the outcomes of your character having hunger. Anyway, yeah, Palladium. I read the books a little as a kid. To me, it always blurred together with GURPS. Yep. Was that the whole point? Generic fantasy rules where you all the fluff creation yourself. Yeah, yeah. GURPS, generic universal role playing system, and uses 3d6 for everything. And I think there's three stats. I think it's health, intelligence, dex, intelligence, and health. I think are the only three stats. And GURPS had some very well written books. GURPS did quite a bit of a deep dive in their laundry list of books that I think are worth it, even if you didn't never played GURPS. But yeah, GURPS had like your hit points were basically 3d6, and that was it. You had like between, I don't know, 8 to 12 hit points on average, and it it was a detailed fiddly system. Like, hey, if you have the athletic skill, that means you also get a +2 with the acrobatic skill if you buy the acrobatic skill, and things like that. And then it was like, it had different point levels for different skills. Like, brain surgery was like a higher level skill. It's something like that. Yeah, Spook says 5e Vampire gets some flack, but it does have some interesting social mechanics. And like I said, I I'm not an edition policeman. You know what I mean? I don't care what edition you play. Just play the game, and I think you'll have some fun in it. I wouldn't care if someone said, "Hey, do you want to join a a vampire game?" and they picked the edition. I would just play the edition that they played. Now, I never played during the Requiem era, when they literally both meta and corporately shut down their, I guess you would say, well, um, well adapted, money making, storyline, and stopped it, and then redid all the rules, redid all the history, redid all the canon. I never played that era, so. Palladium is the opposite of World of Darkness. You want to use the lore and throw away the system. Yeah, yeah, I guess so. Yeah, yeah. You want to use the lore and throw away. Yeah, because the Palladium lore is actually pretty good. Like Rifts gets a lot of flack because of like how imbalanced it was, but it's actually a pretty good lore system. So for those who don't know, let's go here. Let's try to look up. Let's see if we can get at least an image here. Um, there we go. Is that it? Is that all we have? Okay. All right. Well, we'll share this out. So anyway, I'm I'm on the side that it does. So for those who don't know, Palladium Games was its own role playing game, and very much like Dungeons and Dragons, um, they very easily tacked on their semblance of a rule system for different games. So they are the epitome of the game Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, and they used a lot of the lore from, like, it wasn't just you could play Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles. They had a whole thing where you could play a humanoid like a rat or a fish, you know what I mean? Like a shark or a bird or a frog or things like that. Like you could play the whole thing. And then eventually they had so many books that they decided to make a setting called Rifts. And the Rifts setting, not only did they come out with a ton of books, but you could use any other Palladium book and bring it into the Rifts setting, right? It was their excuse to go, no, it's all happening in one world. So the conceit for Rifts, let's see if I can get this out. The conceit for Rifts was that Earth had been inundated with dimensional rifts. There were these ley lines that had spread and crackled and shot across the Earth. And when the ley lines met up, it opened up a rift to another dimension, allowing that dimension to intrude on Earth. And the rifts in the rift dimensional spaces were related to tropish fantasy and science fiction and modern day. So you might have a rift open to cyberpunk China. You might have a rift open up in Europe that was like the Tolkien fantasy era. You might have another rift that opened up and it was like dinosaurs, and another rift that opens up that was to like the Nine Hells, and another rift that opened up, and so on and so forth. So the planet was inundated by these DBs, dimensional beings, that stepped through the rift and wanted to establish their own strongholds and stuff. There was like a vampiric rift and all these things. And all the rifts were just out there. And humanity had to survive. So there were even books related to, well, what is Earth like now? One of the most famous ones are the Juicers, which are kind of a fun character. It's like, your character's going to die in, roll a d6, 4 years. Literally. And you play a character that's like wears this like juicer harness that has their body like juiced up with all kinds of chemicals and things to make you superhuman. But yeah, ultimately, if you didn't get the juicer thing taken off, your character would die. Yeah, play it like you stole it. And there's some. Let me see if this image will come up. Yeah, this was the image on one of the books. And listen, Palladium, let's be honest, Palladium was able to acquire a good 30 to 40% of their artwork that was excellent. But a lot of times the artwork didn't fit the theme. So they would just take the artwork and add stats to it and just make up some background, and that was it. To be honest with you, that's kind of what the rest of us were doing with our role-playing games anyway. But yeah, this monster with tentacles in the background, and the ladies, tight clad ladies that had like these headbands on that were like blind, but they had these weapons and it's floating through the air and stuff. And you're like, what? And that was just some random artwork that somebody created and they decided to throw it in the game. But yeah, Rifts is known for like, if you've ever heard of the Glitter Boys, Juicers, the Coalition, DBs for dimensional beings. There's a bunch of other things that were out there in Rifts. And you could play anything from like a mecha pilot piloting a giant starship to an herbalist to and there was no method to balance out the character types, right? Like one person could say, well, I'm an ex-pilot, and somebody else is like, I'm a demon from the nether realms, and it's like, wait, what? But yeah, all these different images are from different books from the Palladium system and Rifts in general. Like Free Quebec was one, England's another one. The Sumerian Nation, Rift source books, WTF Canada, yep. Savage Worlds also has Rifts. Took the Rifts took the Rifts IP and translated into Savage Worlds. It's been a little while since they've done that. There you go. The Mechanoids. Funny. Know your role. MF and Rifts. MF and Rifts. Yeah. Mutants in orbit. Yeah. I mean, there was like space travel involved in it and all this kind of stuff. Yeah. Phase World and Scyscape and all this and all that stuff was just put together. The Coalition War campaign. There we go. Bionic source book. Yeah, it's wild. It's really wild. Magic, psionics, cybernetics, all that stuff all put together into one game. And that was Rifts, the Rifts thing. Now there were other games that did the same thing. Here's Rifts Japan. I still have my Rifts Japan. Some other stuff. Vampire Kingdoms was another one. Ooh, retro RPG. Yeah, Vampire Kingdoms. Part of the Rifts world. Lone Star was a Rifts Lone Star. Basically, worldwide marshals going around trying to keep things in order. Cyberworks collection. There's another one. Yeah, and a bunch of other stuff. Wormwood. That's the book for dark fantasy and horror. Yeah. Rift's core book. The fuck? There's a glitter boy. Yeah, with a big giant. Is that a glitter boy? Maybe. Yeah. Anyway, big giant cannon on their shoulder. Yeah. Africa. Rift's World Book, Africa. Phase World. This is Off World. They used like phase. They had like Phase World 1, 2, and 3 for alien species. But anyway, thank you very much for letting me show that off a little bit. Yeah, Palladium was one of my first too, and I mean, it was a fiddly game, but I mean, let's not be too harsh on games that like didn't have balance, didn't have good editing, and all that kind of stuff. We had some fun, so yeah. Spook the Splugworth and the Blind Huntresses, yeah. Yeah, Spook says juicers are Bane from Batman. Absolutely. Although in the juicer book, it has some pretty cool juicers, like the Delphi and the Phaeton juicer and the Nova juicer and things like that. Yeah, it was a. I agree. The Rifts always seemed like an excuse to throw together magic with guns and high tech. Yep. Nowhere near as cheesy as Shadowrun, though. Yeah. I agree. Yeah, Spook says it was unapologetically unbalanced. It takes a day to make a character, and you want to. Also, we don't go to Germany, which is weird. Well, the Coalition has allusions to a certain political regime of a certain era, so maybe they were just like, "Ooh, that wouldn't be nice." But yeah, hey Daryl, yeah, I agree. Like Palladium was one of my first earliest RP experiences, especially with like Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles and the way the system worked. Since that's why I'm so into Obsidian. The whole premise of it is more interesting than most things out there. Well, thank you very much. Yeah. I'm working on and I finalized the tech industry in my game. So I finally finalized it. For those who don't know, yeah, like most people, I'm an armchair designer. I'm making my own. What is it? Heartbreaker, uh, sci-fi game, and there are 12 categories. I wanted. Let's go backwards. I wanted to create a way of disseminating high technology to the players in this world, but I didn't want to create a. I know as popular as it is, I didn't want to create a catalog because players then tend to devolve into wanting to go on shopping sprees, and I didn't want to do that. You guys are so bad. Just spook, you're wrong. So I didn't want to do that, but I also didn't want to make it hand wavy. I didn't want to make it quantum equipment. So I created something that's an in-world quantum feature with guardrails. So there are 12 types of tech. So everything is called blank tech. So there's like razor tech, electro tech, thermal tech, cryo tech. I was going to call it storm tech. I might even go backwards to that. Anyway, nanotech, biotech, chemtech, and all of the tech, a player may have one or more of those blueprints on them. So it's hoarding equipment, like having a bunch of guns and armor and equipment hanging on you, is not a thing in Obsidian Star because it takes up too much space and it's heavy and most places are restricted. So for the most part, when you get to wherever you're getting, except for like mundane tools and things like that, if you want heavy weapons, you're going to have to print them out with a 3D printer or get them in a black market or whatever, or have them shipped in, undercover or whatever. And if you have, for example, Razor Tech is RAXOR. Razor Tech is based on X-rays and gamma rays. It's about radiation. And so if you have Razor Tech, you have a series of blueprints that have not been used yet, and you as a player can print out technology under that category. Whether you want something as mundane as a X-ray scanner or a what's known as a rad scrubber. Rad scrubbers are used to get rid of nanotech and also to scrub biologicals off of your body, even though it does produce a pulse of radiation. Those things are very common. Rad scanners, a little badge that detects radiation and things like that. You could probably print those out. If not for free, they might literally be hanging on the wall that you could just pick up in a space station or something. But if you want to print out a what's literally like a razor carbine or a razor blade, which is not an actual blade, but it actually uses X-rays down a magnetic bottle. But anyway, you want to put out a heavy cannon that fires X-rays at people. That's going to be pretty difficult to print one of those out, right? Like most space stations are not going to let you print out heavy weapons in space stations, which, side note, in Obsidian Star, most weapons are pretty dangerous to fire indoors anywhere in space. I always thought it was pretty ridiculous to use like firearms inside of a starship or a space hab, but whatever, right? Like maybe people don't mind the puncture holes, but most of those things are not only dangerous, but you'll get your ass exiled, if not outright arrested and put on ice or something, if once they stop you from like using different things. So yes, a player with like Vox Tech, which is about sound, could produce something simple, like maybe a laser listening, an audio listening device, or a mechanism that mimics someone's vocal patterns, or you have a sonic stunner, or a sonar, an arm-mounted sonar thing, or whatever, and you can print those out. So it is quantum, but it's between each tech has its own category. Yeah, lasers go through armor, bounce off walls. Not only that, but what if you miss? Like, you in some like adventure movies and stories and things like that, you see people like firing blaster bolts at each other and whatnot, and it's like, yeah, but when you miss, that stuff keeps going. So yeah, that gyrojet pistol you have that you think is a badass thing that you fire down a hallway, whether it hits or misses, it's going to explode. And what happens when that, I don't know. It's so funny. Daryl says, I think it was the first influence for my game design fantasies as well. Okay. I created a master list of mutations for hybrid mutants. Could have a PC that's a cyborg cheetah with wings, etc. Yeah, I mean, we got to give it up to the Palladium games. Um, Great artwork for the most part. I want to say like a good 40% of it is some pretty badass artwork that they got together. Now you could make the argument that some of the art didn't fit, but I didn't care, and it had very Dungeons and Dragons aside stats, and used a D20, used a percentile dice. I mean, so yeah, it was a formative game. Formative game. Anyway, guys, I've held you too long. Thank you very much for letting me just rant about different things. We talked about Daggerheart and Darrington Press bringing in two luminaries, I guess, from Dungeons and Dragons. I feel like um, Darrington Press hiring them, uh, the Draw Steel crew over at MCDM, uh, all the others, Tales of the Valiant that is not even talked about anymore. No one even brings up Advanced Fifth Edition, Level Up Advanced Fifth Edition anymore. But me being a very patting myself on the back a little bit, um, pr- doing a little self promotion, being part of that writing crew, and people that have gone on to do their own games like Robin D. Laws and Monty Cook and whatnot. I have a feeling that these personalities are going to be the new norm, and it's a shame that like a Kelsey Dion that made Shadow Dark isn't a person that's going to be hired in the upper echelons. But yeah, let's say they're pretty friggin' successful on their own, right? So yeah, thank you very much. Yeah, some of these people are pretty successful on their own. Maybe they don't need a corporate overlord to hire them to spread out their information, but maybe we will see some collaborations with one or more or dozens of these people together in the future, where we there is no siloing of one game versus another. Maybe we might see like a lot of crossover and whatnot, and I would love to see that. I would love to see Ben Milton's Knave and Kelsey Dion's Shadow Dark come to like or what's the other one? Yohai's Cairn second edition and things games like that where they come together and they're like, hey dude, can we write together? And hey, can we all just collaborate on this one thing? Or hey, Dragon Week is coming up next year. How about we all do a dragon themed supplement for all of our games or something like that, and to have like a little writing thing for each other. I hope we see that so that we don't get siloed into an us versus them kind of mentality. And because as human beings, we love to do that. We love to be tribal. Um, we love to measure our loves by our hates, and I absolutely despise that. So anyway, guys, thank you very much for being part of the show. Thank you very much for for letting this the blinding sun come up behind me. It's so weird because it's kind of a blackout curtain, but when the sun comes up, it literally like blasts through that window. So anyway, guys, have a great one. Thank you very much for being part of the show. I really appreciate it. And of course, hope to see you tomorrow. Bye.